Hello! Welcome back to my channel. Just Shauna here to talk about some friggin' books. I did this video the other day and I hated everything about it. I just was not in the right mindset. So here's the redo. Today I am talking about, you know which series, the Shattered Realms series by Cinda Williams-Chima, because I have finally completed the entire series. This is a YA fantasy series. It is the continuation to the Seven Realms series, which is also a 4-book YA fantasy series. In this one, we are following the children of the main characters from the first one, so it's a generation later. I definitely recommend reading the Seven Realms series before reading Shattered Realms. It's not a necessity, I wouldn't say, but there are things that happen and characters. There are still the characters from the first books that are in this, and while they don't play a huge role, certain things will just make more sense and have more of an impact if you have read the Seven Realms. But you will totally be able to follow the plot points in these books without having read the first one. So I have talked about all of these books already in different wrap-ups. This is just kind of my general wrap-up of the whole thing, and I'm gonna go through each book individually because I felt pretty differently. 2 of them I didn't love as much. Also, side note, I am forever annoyed that there is no way to own this whole series with all of the same covers. So the first one, Flamecaster, in the hardcover, has this, and there is not an option to get that with the people on the cover. You have to have one that's like this weird other cover. And I actually like these ones with the people on them. So starting off with Flamecaster, this one definitely, it was reminiscent of the first book of the original series, where it was a slower start. It very much felt like an introductory book. And I didn't dislike the pacing necessarily, but it was just a little bit more gradual to get going. That's not to say that there's not action right off the bat, because there is. There definitely is. Like in the first chapter, I want to say. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be spoilery in this because I realized that it was too difficult for me to talk about each book in any real way without being spoilery. So it's in the title, but here's your warning again that spoilers abound if you have not read these. I don't know why you're watching this whole thing. So we start off meeting Adrian Sulhan, also known as Ash. He is the son of Raisa, Queen Raisa, and Han from the first series. They ended up having 3 children, Hannah, Adrian, and Alyssa, or Liz. And right at the start, we never even meet Hannah. We learn right away that Hannah has been killed on the battlefield recently from the start of the book. And we start with Adrian in the city with his father, with Han. And tragedy strikes, and Han is killed. And it was a little sad. I'm not someone that gets super upset from stuff like that, like characters from one series dying off in the continuation series. I don't know, because I'm able to see them as 2 separate things, I guess, or I guess I kind of was expecting it in some way. I didn't even know if the characters from the first book would all still be alive at the start of this series, and so I was surprised that they were, but then I wasn't really surprised that someone died right away, but it was really sad. And then Adrian dips out. He's scared, he doesn't know what to do. He sees his dad be murdered, and so he leaves and he goes to Odin's Ford. He doesn't really know where he's going at first, and then his mentor convinces him to go to Odin's Ford, which is like the training and the schools and everything. So he's gonna learn to be a healer. And he's going under an assumed name, so he's pretending to be somebody else. So his mom and his remaining sister think that he is dead as well. Everybody thinks he's dead. And that's in the first chapter or 2. I wanna say that's all in the first chapter. And then we jump ahead a few years with him still at Odin's Ford, and he has learned the art of poison, and he, on his breaks, like summer breaks and stuff, travels around Arden, their enemy country to the Fells where he's from. He travels around assassinating people. And then in this time, we also meet Jenna, who is a patriot freedom fighter in the city of Delphi in Arden. And we meet Destin Karn, who is a high-ranking officer of some sort in the Ardennes army, and he is in Delphi looking for somebody with a mage mark on the back of their neck, and he doesn't know why he's looking for them. He just knows that he needs to be looking for them. And turns out Jenna, who we meet, has this. She doesn't know why, she doesn't know where it comes from, she has no memory of her childhood. She basically just came to one day and had this thing on the back of her neck and doesn't know what it is for or what it does. And Destin seems like the bad guy who isn't really bad, who's just doing what he's told and has his ulterior motives or his other plans going on at the same time. He's just trying to survive so that he can carry out his true plan. Things ensue, and Ash, or Adrian, and Jenna both end up at the Ardennes court. And we also get, not introduced to because we don't see her, but we get introduced to the idea of the Empress Celestine, who ends up being the big bad throughout the series. And she is hunting these people with the mage marks. She's the one that wants Jenna, and one of her ships show up with a dragon to trade for Jenna. So they're gonna give the king of Arden this dragon. Turns out Jenna's magic gift is that she's some sort of a shapeshifter, and she can speak to animals. And the dragon gets loose, things happen, there's a battle, and the dragon comes to Jenna, saves her, she flies off on the dragon. And then Adrian decides, oh, the king is dead, and Adrian decides now's a good time to go back home. So he is heading back to the Fells at the end of this book. I liked this book generally. There wasn't anything that necessarily was wrong with it, but like I said, the pacing was just a little bit slow to start, and I didn't really connect with any of these particular characters a whole heck of a lot. Again, I liked them. I didn't dislike any of them. I didn't think any of them were super annoying or anything, but I just wasn't super connected with them, so I wasn't super connected with the story as a whole. I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5. Then we jump to Shadowcaster. Now this one starts off towards the beginning of Flamecaster as far as the timeline of events. We're just following different characters. We get introduced to Liz officially, Alyssa, Adrian's sister, and she is now the Princess Heir. She is a renowned captain in the Fells army. She's a badass fighter chick. But while she is this badass fighter chick, she also has immense amounts of compassion and feeling for others, so she's not just some cold, distant warrior type. We also meet Hal, who is a soldier in the Ardennes army, and he's very honor-bound, duty-bound. He reminds me of one of my least favorite characters ever, Kale from the Throne of Glass series, except I liked Hal and I didn't like Kale. And I was thinking about why, and I think Hal just had more depth to him, I guess. He just felt like more of a person. And then we also get introduced to Brian, who is a poor musician who is addicted to a drug in their world, which I can't remember now, but I'm pretty sure it's called Razor Leaf. He has magic also. He has a mage mark on the back of his neck, and he, again, just like Jenna, doesn't know where it came from, doesn't know necessarily what it's all about, what the point of it is. He doesn't have memories of his childhood. Initially, I was kind of meh about Brian. He was there, but I wasn't super interested in him. But when he was captured, he was forcibly weaned off of his razor leaf addiction, and his true personality started to come out, and oh my god, he's so funny. He's just so snarky and witty, and I just one of my favorite kinds of characters, and I really ended up liking him by the end of it. And I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Things were picking up. I liked the characters better, was the biggest difference between the first book and the second book for me. The pacing was a little bit quicker, like I said, but I really liked Liz a lot. I really liked Hal. I really liked Brian. Jenna's cool, but again, I wasn't super connected to her. And this one I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And then we come to Stormcaster. And for me, this was the standout book of the series. We meet Celestine more officially. So we have seen her in the end of Shadowcaster, But in Stormcaster, there's like more interactions with her, and we meet Evan Strangward, who is another person with the mage mark on the back of his neck, and someone who Celestine is hunting and trying to get. The thing is, though, that he's a pirate, and his magic is that he's a stormcaster, and he can create storms on the sea, he can control the weather, so that is to his advantage, of course, and he's able to stay away from Celestine all the time, and he is the only one of these people who is from the same lands as Celestine. So at the very beginning of Stormcaster, we actually go way back in time, possibly to even before the first chapter of Flamecaster, because that is when Adrian is really young and when Han dies. And I feel like the beginning of Stormcaster goes back even further than that, but it at least goes back that far. And we see Destin Karn with his mother in Karthus, and he meets Evan Strangward, and they end up having kind of an alliance together, and they end up having a romance together. But then things happen. Destin's dad finds him and his mom, and he's like an evil tyrant, drags them back to the Seven Kingdoms. But Evan and Destin keep in touch over the years, and you find out that they basically have had this secret plan going for years. And the whole thing with the dragon coming to be in exchange for Jenna was all just them. The Empress Celestine was not involved in that at all. They were just trying to save Jenna from getting hunted by Celestine. And I really like that whole aspect of it, that they had this thing going like behind the scenes that nobody knew about for all these years. I really enjoyed that. And then we see Adrian come back to his home, but he just misses Lys and doesn't see her. And Lys and Brienne are in Celestine's palace and land, which is called Celesgard, I think. And also Jenna is there secretly with her dragon up in the mountain. She ends up finding a bunch of baby dragons and starts training them. And she ends up meeting Lys, realizing who she is, that she's Adrian's sister, and they end up forming an alliance as well. We still don't know what the fuck Celestine is up to, like what her motivation is, why she's hunting all of these people. She has Brienne in her palace, and she's treating him very well. She calls him a prince, says he's her brother, and is treating him super, super well, but also gave him razor leaf, and so he's addicted again, so she's keeping him very docile. And she does all this blood magic with people, and she just seems really terrible, but then you see her being really kind and accommodating to Brienne. And this one, I think it was mostly just, I like the characters again, and you're seeing some of them kind of come together and form alliances. And I really liked Evan as a character as well, and the pacing was just great. This one was just a fun time. I was kept on the edge of my seat. I read it really quickly, and I just enjoyed my time reading it. I gave it a 10 out of 10 for good time on my official rating scale. And on the 5-star scale, I gave it 5 stars. Really loved this book. It was really fun. And like things are picking up, and I just was so anxious to start the next book, Deathcaster. And yeah, this one was, I'll get into it. So with this one, we have all of these characters and all of these different storylines. They started to come together a little bit in Shadowcaster and Stormcaster, but now in Deathcaster, they're really coming together. Like, people that are over here together that have formed alliances are meeting up with people over here, and just it's all over the place as far as all of these storylines meeting up. And honestly, a few times I had to kind of pause and think about, like, where are they? Okay, they're over there. And they knew each other from that. And oh, he knows her, but she doesn't know that he knows her. Like, you know what I mean? I had to kind of pause and organize things in my mind, and it was a little confusing a few times. There was a whole kind of sequence of events that drove me crazy towards the beginning of this one. Adrian and Evan, who are in the Fells, they get a little band of people together, different friends, to go rescue Lys is their mission. They're going to go to Celesgard to rescue Lys. Mind you, Evan is the only person out of this whole group who has ever even been to Karthus, who has been across the sea, who knows the Empress at all, who has ever had an interaction with her. Like, he knows her habits, he knows what she's capable of, all that. And he's telling them, hey, we should do this plan. And literally everybody is like, I don't trust him. I don't know why he would say that. He's probably trying to get us into a trap. And he keeps giving logical reasons, and he keeps saying, I know her, and I don't want to go into this plan like this because we're all going to die. I don't want to die. And they just keep arguing with him, and no, you don't know. We shouldn't trust him. And it was particularly this one character, Sasha, who just is so, oh my God. And at one point he even says, fine, if you guys want to do your plan, let me off so I can do it my way separately, because I'm not trying to go get slaughtered with all of you. And they still are like, he's up to something. I'm like, he's just trying to live. Like, literally that's what he's up to. Nothing about this sounds suspicious. And the fact that they were so obstinate about it was so annoying. They were just all so very stupid. And he was right, and they all got fucked because they didn't listen to him. And it was just very irritating. And even after that, he saves two of them, Sasha included, and she still is like, I don't trust you as far as I can throw you. I'm like, he just saved your life. He could have let you drown in the ocean. She was dumb. She was so dumb. It just felt like forced drama, and I didn't care for it. Very contrived. We do get to see Han for a little bit, which was really cool. Adrian does the whole magic thing where he goes to, I think it's called Adeon. It's like their magical realm where mages can meet up even if one of them has passed. Like, they can kind of transport themselves there, their spirit there. And so he got to see his dad, which was really neat. And he kind of tipped him off to some sabotage happening. And yeah, that was a really cool moment, and I was happy to see that. The pacing in this one just wasn't consistent. This book was only like 100 pages longer than Stormcaster, but it took me probably a solid week and a half longer to finish because it just kind of felt like I was trudging through mud for quite a bit of it. And I don't know if it was just because there were so many moving parts all coming together, you know, which is fine. That's gonna happen, but it just made for weird pacing for me because then at the end, the final 20% of the book, all of a sudden everything happened, everything came together, and the whole ending with Celestine, we finally got some answers about who the frick she was, what she wanted, what her goal was, and it was so rushed. It was like 2 chapters explaining this, and then her having 2 of them with her and going to sacrifice them essentially to gain their power. Like, that's what her whole goal was. And it was so unsatisfying. And for being such a big bad, and oh, she's got all this magic, and Evan was so scared of her, like, I know what she's capable of. She was killed off really quickly, like super quickly. There wasn't even a fight really. And it just rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. It just gave me a little bit of like whiplash, plot whiplash. And then the reaction at the end to Princess Melanie, Raisa's sister, and, you know, the aunt to Adrian and Lys, her being the traitor, I felt like the response to that, the reaction was super like underwhelmed. They all just were like, oh gosh, that's like, she quite literally plotted for the murders of some of your family, and you're just gonna be like, well, she's our aunt. I don't know. I wanted to see Lys like have her publicly executed or something. I mean, it's a YA book, I guess, but like things happen in it, like people die and stuff. So I was like, why can't we have her die? She should die. It was just way too forgiving for such an immensely terrible act that she did, many acts that she did. So this one I ended up giving 3 out of 5 stars. So the first book and the last book were the weakest for me. The final book definitely being the weakest out of all 4. I don't want to say that I was mad at the ending though. I wasn't mad at it. It just wasn't as solid as I wanted it to be, but I didn't hate it. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the series. I'll definitely keep it in my library. I would say that I prefer the 7 Realms series over this one just because I think it was more consistent. You know what I mean? Like this one I had 2 that were 3 stars, and the last one was kind of a lower 3-star, for being honest. But then I had one that was a 5-star and one that was a 4-star. And I think in the 7 realms, I don't think any, were some of them 5 stars? I know at least one was at least a 4-star. I can't remember. But just, yeah, it was just more consistent. The pacing was more consistent. I remember being more satisfied with the ending. So for that reason, I prefer that one. But this one was a lot of fun also. Overall, I would give the series a 3.5 out of 5. I think that kind of evens it out. But yeah, Stormcaster, man, that was just a fun ass time to me. I assume if you're watching this video, you have read the series. So let me know what one was your favorite book out of the series if you have indeed completed it. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.